All righty. Welcome back to the Beyond the Coach podcast. For some reason, I feel like that countdown to us starting was the longest 5 seconds of my life. But nonetheless, I am one of your hosts, Kelsey Nanini.
It sounded like you just said coast.
Host. I'm one of your. I was saying coach and host. I'm a. It's a hybrid.
It's a hybrid. Well, I am also your coast for the day, Chris Sweet. We're obviously partially delusional today, so this is going to be a good one.
We're podcasting an hour earlier than normal, and I also literally got out of bed 30 minutes ago.
More power to you, honestly.
I mean, Burrow, I was telling you this earlier. My puppy, he's actually going to be 6 months in a couple weeks, but he has been a maniac. But the past week, he's been just like a little cuddle bug. And Kaden was like, I told you this was going to happen. I told you you were going to be best friends with him. You weren't going to hate him. And I finally start to feel like I'm liking him. For the first 4 months we had him, I was like, I can't do this. I literally want, how do people have labs? Well, he's a lab and a golden retriever, which is he's going to be very loyal. But he's also a freaking psychopath.
He's got a lot of energy to give out.
A
lot of love to give.
He has such good cuddles. So I stayed in bed a little bit too long.
That is totally fair. I also think that we don't talk enough about the process of getting a second dog or whatever dog, and it's not clicking for you and the dog as soon as your first dog. Literally. Obviously, you and Otson are tight and besties. So then when you welcome another dog in, you're like, oh, now I need to learn this dog and their personality, especially a puppy, because Enzo has evolved so much. I mean, he's so sweet now. But he was a literal pterodactyl when we got him. And I was he was actually really sweet when we first got him. He's like a Sour Patch Kid. He's sour sweet and then he's gone. He's like, okay, cool. I got my fix in.
Literally.
Yes, he's staring at me. I'm like, that was you.
Yes, I'm talking about you, you little psycho. I know. And I even said multiple times, a Labrador and a Golden Retriever are two of the most common dog breeds. But I'm like, is no one talking about how chaotic they are? And I don't know if it's because it's the mix, but Caden's this is just what a puppy is. And I was like, how do people with families do this? It's just you and I. And given when we got Otson the Friday, life shut down with COVID. So I was unemployed. I had gotten laid off and I was sick. I just gotta raise a puppy. And he slept so much though. German Shepherd Chow-Chows are kind of late. He was lazy. He had his asshole moments for sure. But he would pick things up in his mouth and he would just be come get it. Our remote. He broke 3 remotes. And I think I forget those things because I wasn't working. I just had time to pay attention to him. Now I'm Burrow, get the fuck out of my office.
Yes.
Leave me alone.
Isn't it crazy that him and Addie are the only thing Addie has different is that she has miniature dachshund in her, which shrunk her.
So much different. Yeah,
it looks so I just think of the fact that she is a Chow Chow Shepherd. But she literally shrunk from her little gene of...
No one would ever guess.
No, not at all.
I would, with her size, I would so guess that she's a Basset Hound or something.
Everybody says that.
She has the Basset Hound body without the face.
Yeah, every single person we saw last weekend that saw her was oh my gosh, is she a Basset Hound mix? I'm no, you'd be very wrong. I was
never guess.
I'm she's a miniature dachshund. Don't ask me who did what in that process of creation there, but I
hope he was the donor.
God bless her mother, because that's crazy. And God bless her siblings, because they all are just little...
Are they all weird? Did you know what they look like?
On the website, we had seen them. She was the only final one of the litter, though, at the shelter when we went. So I didn't get to see the other ones, but she was really freaking cute. So I thought she was a Corgi Husky mix.
See Corgi too, for sure.
Yeah. But no, she's so cute. So big dog logos over here, obviously. Yes. We love our puppies. Yes. Special shout out to Charlie, because I didn't mention him, but he's just he's just Charlie. So
he's there as well.
He's there.
Well, cool. Let's dive in. I'm excited for this episode. I feel like I say that every episode, but we're going to talk about reverse dieting and kind of come at it from a few different angles. We want to talk about what it is and who probably needs it, what the, tactical piece of a reverse diet looks like, who needs it, but also coming at a few different angles in terms of who needs it and who doesn't need it, um, and why. So, um, Chris, you want to start us off? Like, what's a reverse diet?
So I always like to explain to clients where I'm like, it literally is what it sounds like. You are reversing out of a diet. Like you are taking yourself out of a diet, whether that is intentional or non-intentional. Like we will determine that based on someone's baseline track that they do, just to get initial insight into their food intake and caloric intake. So it's literally increasing their food to take them out of a diet, doing it steadily where the whole focus is to like rebuild someone's maintenance phase, focus on improving their biofeedback, reducing the fatigue or any symptoms like poor biofeedback that they may be experiencing, whether again that's in an intentional or unintentional deficit, while also from a physique standpoint trying to avoid rapid fat gain and keeping it in a controlled setting, because that's where people go wrong a lot of the times, is it's not controlled. And we'll talk about that as far as advice that like coaches will give and that you'll hear very commonly, and it can get very frustrating in the industry. And so really focusing on making sure that you're getting your food intake up. Sorry if you can hear Enzo. He was like, I must be the star of the show now. Like perfect timing.
Yeah.
Always
we
on
were
cue.
talking about you, yes, Enzo.
Always on cue. He's like, okay, I'm here, mom. But it is steadily getting your food intake back up to that estimated maintenance range. And that is through the process of increasing food. It also can be through the process of looking at your energy expenditure as well. So we'll look at both things with clients and try to manipulate both to get someone up to their maintenance as well.
Yep. And I think it is a really great tool for that specifically, because you can go on the internet and you could type in, TDEE calculator and figure out what someone's estimated TDEE is. You can use a few different of the equations that are out there, but ultimately you'll never really truly know, because maintenance can be so like it just relies on so many different things, and especially like the biggest one that's going to be a factor, because obviously height, age, gender, weight are going to be the big ones that are in the calculator, activity level, but muscle mass plays such a huge role, and that ultimately is what's going to like really sway the numbers up or down. Somebody with more muscle mass just by nature can eat a lot more food, because their metabolism is just kind of burning through like a lot more. And there's other factors too, right? It does come down to metabolism largely. So finding out, like being able to manually adjust as you're going with the reverse diet, especially when you get to somebody's estimated maintenance, hanging out there for a few weeks, seeing if they, and especially for women, hanging out there for, I would like to say like 2 to 4 weeks, just to see where their body responds at. If they're slightly gaining weight, it's like, okay, then, maybe we do need to tick down calories a little bit, and vice versa. If they're still losing, which I think is like almost the coolest thing in a reverse diet, when someone's like up at their estimated maintenance and they're still like steadily losing weight, you're like, hell yeah. Like now you get to eat more food. Like that's really freaking exciting. I like the more food, the better. And I think that's also a common misconception with reverse dieting, and where a lot of people get very nervous to reverse diet. It's like, well, I don't want to eat more food. And it's like, hypothetically, you're still in a deficit in a reverse diet. Like a reverse diet is still a deficit, because you are slowly getting up to your maintenance. And so it's not something to fear that you're going to be gaining weight. Like that's the goal of a reverse diet, is that you really aren't. And if you do gain a few pounds, it's probably mostly water weight that your body will adapt to, because it'll learn how to utilize more of the food and be able to utilize it for energy towards your workouts, all the different things. Like I think it's just so important in a reverse diet to be patient, because your body is very, very, very adaptive. It's going to learn how to use that extra food for fuel.
And I find for coaches that, coaching their clients, this is a big time where you really have to start shifting like the mindset wins and the non-scale victories, because for, if you were in a structured deficit, let's say for 12 to 16 weeks, you just spent 12 to 16 weeks talking about fat loss and using that as a huge metric, and looking at the scale and looking at photos. And while I think photos are still super important and all those metrics are still like valuable to a coach and to a client, it is going to be kind of a little bit of a mind fuck for the client to now be going through a reverse diet where like for the last 12 to 16 weeks, you were celebrating things going down, things trending downward. And now you're kind of getting to almost like a plateau, it can feel like for them, where steadily maybe they start losing again. But then, like you said, maybe there's a slight gain up. Then it starts to kind of like flatline out there for them as far as maintenance goes and like weight trends go. So a lot of times it's also prepping and framing to your clients of, hey, this is what to expect in the reverse. Here's how we're going to start to kind of transition and early on start celebrating some of those mindset wins for clients if you find that your clients get a little too emotionally tied to the scale itself.
Yep. And yeah, I think that goes into like how to execute a reverse diet properly as well. And the first piece is much like anything, it depends on the client and it depends on who you're working with. For the person who has genuinely been under eating, like genuinely will not allow themselves to have like free meals, anything, they're very restrictive. It is so important to take it extremely slow because if they're, for instance, have been having 1,300, 1,400 calories long term, or dare I say less, those are the people who have like, maybe they're just finishing Optavia. Maybe they have been on, is it Optavia?
Optavia?
Optavia? I don't remember.
Octavia.
Octavia. Yeah.
I was like,
I was
Optavia
is wrong. And then I was thinking Activia is the yogurt.
That's what I was thinking of. I was like, was I thinking of the yogurt? I was like,
of Optavia. I believe it's Optavia.
My brain literally just glitched.
I think it is. That like it's like that diet that has you eating like 800 calories with like fuelings and stuff. Or you have someone who's on GLP-1s and they don't have an appetite and they maybe are like transitioning off GLP-1s. It is Optavia. Did you double check that for me?
It is. I was like, there is Octavia too. I'm like,
there's so many different Octavias.
Octavia.
Octavia. So yeah, if they're like on these aggressive diets, you're gonna need to make very like small changes, like 50 calories every 1 to 2 weeks. Your reverse diet could very well be 3 to 4 months long, like truthfully. But I think it's also just really important to know your client and know that like it is a mind fuck for them because they're like, so no one's ever, especially for the women who are in their 40s and 50s and have been eating this amount, they grew up in the 90s. They grew up in the, like, well, we all did grow up in the 90s at some point, but like they grew up in the 80s, 90s. They had this formative age where when they were younger, it was all about being as thin as possible. Like no girl wanted an ass in the 90s. They wanted like to be stick thin. And they've done years and years of dieting. Not one of those diets has ever told them to eat more food. And so you have to remember the client specifically. So slow and surely for those clients. Clients that maybe they're the inconsistent, and this is a huge conversation that we'll probably have maybe right after I finish talking, about the client who's like, oh, I only eat 1,500 calories, 1,400 calories, whatever. But they do that Monday through Thursday, and then Friday through Sunday, they go balls out and probably are eating close to 3,000 calories or more with like all the alcoholic beverages, eating out, all the things. They can go a little bit more aggressive because actually their average amount of food for the week is probably more than even the reverse diet, but you want to get them used to eating more on the weekdays so they're not like over consuming on the weekends. And then I would say that like, so they can be, 100 calories every week or two, or you could increase immediately by 200 calories and keep it there for, a couple of weeks and see how their body responds. And I feel like most people, that's like a reverse diet that you can do is like 100 calories every week or 200 calories every other week and just, figure out what's better for your client.
Well, and I think those people who come in and have that range of calories, they fail to think of the fact that your total calories for the week is what matters, not just the day. So clients are always like, oh, well, I'll do better tomorrow. I'll do better tomorrow. It doesn't matter if you do better tomorrow, right? Like if that's their mentality where they're like, okay, I just ate like 2,500 calories, but I'm supposed to be eating 1,800. I'll do better tomorrow. Yes, doing better tomorrow does improve adherence, but if you're not improving the overall caloric intake for the week, you're going to continue to experience likely unwanted fat gain. Like a client's going to experience that. Or if they're in a deficit, obviously it's going to be hard for them to even lose fat if that's kind of the mentality that they're in. So I think really framing that for clients and working on that from the get-go as far as like their daily intake and really creating consistency across it goes such a long way for the client.
Yeah, I was just doing quick math while you were saying that because I think too, like you said, it is every day and taking the average. And when you guide a client to realize that, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I never even thought of it that way." Like, well, yeah, every day matters. I always tell clients like you can't just separate your weekdays and weekends. Like
Yeah.
every day matters. So when you stop thinking of it like, oh, these are my weekday like this is my weekday, and then like weekends are totally separate. When you stop looking at it that way and it's just another day, like I treat the weekends like every other day, and we still wake up at the same amount at same time. We still go to bed
Mhm.
at the same time. Like it's just something I've gotten used to, and I feel like that's helped a lot with consistency. But outside of that, I did calculations. So like that example I used, if like someone's eating 1,500 calories Monday through Thursday, and then they have the 3,000 calories, which really isn't a crazy thing to say. Like if someone's having 4
Some
drinks
drinks,
a day and, if they're
appetizers,
yeah,
dinner, dessert, everything,
and, like,
crumble
going out to eat the
cookie.
whole time exactly, like, you just have little nibbles do really add up,
Yep.
and especially when you're drinking, you don't always have it's not like someone's, like, opting for sautéed vegetables with chicken breast and, like, rice, like, it's typically a burger or, like, onion rings, and, like, dude, that stuff's so good, and it's not a bad thing to have that on the weekends, but it's when it's every weekend, all day, and you're going off the rails, like, uh that does make a difference.
And the
But
reverse diet itself can feel like a permission slip for some clients to go balls to the wall, which we'll talk about as at the end, as far
yep.
as like strategies and things. But mentally speaking, they see it as this permission slip of I'll just fill all my macros with the fun foods, but then in the same breath, give it 2-3 weeks, they feel puffier, they feel
Yep.
like they've gained all this weight, they don't feel like themselves energetically, they're so drained, and now they start to demonize the extra calories. And they're like, well, the extra calories are the problem. It's like, no, your quality of food
There.
also
Yes.
matters in the decisions you're making. So it all syncs together, but we're still in the process of explaining the reverse diet. So I don't want to, I get like so, ew, I just like the thoughts brew in me on topics like this. So
Just a little
I had to
aesthetic
say it. I
right
had to
there.
give a little like side road, but I'll let you continue.
But yeah, if you have someone like that, 1,500 calories 4 days a week, 3,000 calories on the weekends, 15,000 calories for the week. If they were to stick to those 1,500 calories, which arbitrarily could be low, but like if someone's in the tail end of a deficit, then maybe they do need to be there. If they did 1,500 calories 7 days a week, they'd be at 10,500 calories. So now with the weekends, you're eating 4,500 more calories than what your goal range was. And it takes like 1 pound can be gained or lost with either a surplus of 3,500 calories or a deficit of 3,500 calories. So now you're actually steadily gaining a pound every week just because your weekends are so thrown off. Instead, if you were to just reverse diet, and let's say you wanted to get up to 1,900 calories, or even let's say 2,100 calories, because that could be your maintenance hypothetically, you would still be eating, if you were having 2,100 calories throughout the week, 7 days a week, you'd be at 14,700 calories. So you'd actually be eating still less than you were when you were going balls out every weekend, but now you're doing it every day so you don't feel the need to go off the rails, and then your body isn't digesting half the amount of food 4 days a week and then a ton of food on the weekends and like stressing your GI tract out. So like there's so many little nuances to the reason behind eating more food. But really it's just because you need to be at maintenance. Your body wants to be at just even. It wants to be in a stable environment, and that's what maintenance is, and that's where reverse dieting gets you.
Yep, exactly. So I know that we talked about like starting point as far as that goes of like, it's, hey, you stop the dieting phase or you're kind of at the tail end of your diet or slightly above, wherever it may be. And you obviously need to go up. So there's the conservative approach. That is what you just mentioned of like steadily going up. If someone's like very much like been a chronic dieter, has been on the GLP-1s, like has done all the things, all the diets, their body's going to be so much more sensitive to a reverse diet. That's just the reality of it. And then I find that there's like two other alternatives. You can take a more moderate approach, and then you can take a more aggressive approach. And I think it's going to be very dependent on the individual. I don't find that the aggressive approach, like a pretty quick increase or big increases, are always the best for like non-performance related clients. I feel like the performance related clients can take it a little bit better, but I find that more moderately, like 100 to 150 calories, like every week, every other week, steadily going up can be a little bit more beneficial. But I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, that's what I typically do too. And if someone's kind of still like losing weight pretty rapidly, and by rapidly I mean like if we reversed and they still lost a pound that week, I'm probably going to increase the next week. Just because the goal really is to get them to maintain their weight. Like, it's not a bad thing. Like, awesome, you're still losing weight in a deficit, but it's like, that's not the goal right now. The goal is really to find your maintenance and have you just like thriving at maintenance so you can start performing better, feel more confident in your lifts, feel like you can actually just have a lifestyle where it's not super restrictive because cuts are restrictive. But yeah, and
And
like going to go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, and then in regards of like what you're adding to those calories as well, I was just kind of, oh, is that what you were segmenting into? Perfect.
You go ahead.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, and I think a lot of people get stuck of like, what needs to change in the reverse diet. And a lot of times you're giving those calories most of the time to carbs, and then you're going to give some of it to fats as well. Obviously, depending on somebody's result in a fat loss phase, like even their protein might need some adjusting as well. Like you could potentially need to adjust all the things based on what someone's result was at the end of their deficit, if they're truly coming out of a deficit, or if it's a new client again who's needs the reverse diet, needs that to be the next step, then maybe you're setting a specific protein goal for now, knowing that body weight really isn't going to shift a whole lot, but maybe you need to get that up as well. Maybe someone's coming in and they're only eating like 50 grams of protein or less, but you need to steadily work that up as well. In that case, then you're going to be really changing everything, the protein, the carbs, the fats. But a lot of times based on preference for a client, based on biofeedback, based on training demands, based on lifestyle, food preferences, you're likely going to be doing primarily carbs and then some fats in that mix. And then protein will stay pretty consistent, usually between like 0.8 to 1.2 pounds or grams per pound of body fat, body weight at that point. I always like to go more off of lean muscle mass as well. I think that's where a lot of people go wrong sometimes with protein, is that they think like, oh, a 250-pound individual needs to be eating 250 grams of protein. That's not accurate in that sense. Like they probably are going to feel pretty miserable eating that much protein as well. So that's another thing to keep in mind too.
Yep. And two, again, there's a lot of nuances to making these changes. For instance, if you have someone coming off keto and they're trying to transition off keto, it's not like, okay, let's just go back to a normal macro breakdown. It's like, no, like gradually, I'm probably going to be decreasing fat by 10 grams, 5 to 10 grams, depending on where they're at. And same thing with carbs, toggling that to increase maybe 10 to 15 grams of carbs. And depending where protein is, you're toggling that as well. But the big thing is, as you're changing around this macro breakdown, kind of like you were saying earlier, it's not just like your permission slip to just start eating like an asshole. And I think that's where a reverse diet is super beneficial, because when we look at what normally happens after someone finishes a deficit, if they're not reverse dieting, and not everyone needs to, some people are totally fine to go back up to maintenance. And I think that's also another nuance to it is, like you said, that the performance athletes, the people who are pretty advanced, typically we can just bring them back up to their estimated maintenance and then just make a few tweaks from there, just depending on how their body responds. Like they're ready to accept in that new food. They understand the benefit of it. They understand that like maintenance is where it's at and that they're going to perform better with that. But anyways, going back to that is like a lot of people, when they finish a deficit, just are like, I'm going to intuitive eat now. And it's like, it's not the right time. Like, yes, I'm a big fan of intuitive eating. I don't think that you should be a slave to MyFitnessPal forever. At the same time, you have to understand what your maintenance is at, because otherwise you pretty much just wipe out everything you just did in that deficit because you weren't prepared to be like just free balling it, right? And so when you're increasing food, sometimes it doesn't mean that you're adding in a ton of the fun foods. Like, yes, you can. Absolutely. I'm a total balanced person. I have literally multiple sweet treats a day. I also have a ton of fiber and like whole foods as well. And so that's the biggest thing is like when you think about a plate in a deficit, it's a lot more volume foods. You have a lot more vegetables, a lot more lean meats. You're probably not cooking it in as much oil because you have like a small amount of fats that you need to, place elsewhere, and not as much carbs. But when you go to reverse diet, you kind of just change the breakdown of your plate. Maybe you still do have a good portion of your plate is vegetables, but now you're beefing up the meal by having more rice, like you add more rice to that plate, and maybe your choice of protein goes from a chicken breast to a chicken thigh because chicken thighs just taste better. I like literally can't stand just eating. I can't believe I had like just chicken breast for so long. Like it's so gross. But I think it's just a matter of like the breakdown of your meals just become a little bit different. But it doesn't mean that the foods you're eating change. Like I literally eat the same things, whether I'm at maintenance, in a surplus, in a deficit. It's just the breakdown of your plate may change a little bit.
And I think your biofeedback will also determine a lot of this too. Like if you're going into this reverse diet and immediately you're like, okay, I just got 200 extra calories. I'm just going to fill that with, Reese's peanut butter eggs and crumble cookie or something. Your biofeedback is going to be very telling of like progress in a reverse diet as well. It's not just the scale. It's not just like, oh, cool, we didn't gain weight this week. Like, let's go ahead and like bump us. That's not the metric that we're looking at. And that's where, again, priming clients, if you are a coach listening, priming clients through the mental, battle that can be a reverse diet. And I think all coaches have likely or should have likely gone through a reverse diet themselves. If they've never gone through one, I actually recommend you do it yourself because that's going to help you teach clients. Like I can level with clients so much through my experience of reverse dieting. But looking at biofeedback and figuring out like what is their hunger looking like? What is their energy looking like? What is their sleep, their mood, their menstrual cycle, right? Their digestion. Because if that stuff is getting impacted and you're looking at their food logs and suddenly you're like, okay, well, they're filling these extra 200 to 500 calories with really just low, nutrient density foods, then that's not going to be super optimal for their biofeedback and thus can then be creating a little bit what feels like the tumbleweed of, okay, weight's going up, inflammation's going up. I don't feel very good. And now you have clients who are like, I don't want to go into this reverse. I don't want to go to maintenance. Like this stinks. But really it's at the hands of their own, cause that they got there. But also I think as coaches, we have to say, but did we teach them? Did we prime them? Did we prep them for that appropriate phase and explain to them the importance of those whole foods and that this isn't just a permission slip to go balls to the walls. And this goes back to circa 2019, 2018, 2020, when it was the if it fits your macros, and everyone was so in this trend of like, okay, IFYM, like if it fits your macros, like we'll be good, everything's fine. And you had these bodybuilders who were showing their full day of eatings, and they were having like chips and burgers and candy and all these things,
sugar-free everything.
Yes,
no sugar added,
Walden
Farms.
Like everything. It was crazy. If you look back at some of the like YouTube, back in the when really everyone was on YouTube and all the influencers were only on there because TikTok didn't exist, it was like the most repulsive thing in the world. And I think that's where people get really hung up on is this whole idea, well, if it fits my macros, like then I'm fine. I'll just try to fill it in. And it's not just a matter of if it fits your macros, it's does it make me feel good? Does it actually help sustain the goal that I have? And am I able to now sustain this for life in my eating habits? And is there something now that needs to actually be worked on a more deeper level that could be your relationship with food and your expansiveness towards food as well, and how you treat food, because that's its own battle in and of itself that can come out through reverse dieting.
And you're just seeing so many people that went through the if it fits your macro stuff. Like I'm almost so glad that I was like too poor in 2017 and 2018 to get all the fun stuff. Like I still did, but like not like, I know we were talking about like the flavored egg whites, like like makes me actually want to regurgitate. But like there's so many silly things back then that just had so many substitutes and things like that, and more so like the chemicals that ended up being a replacement for the sugars. Like if it wasn't stevia from a leaf, it was just like an unnatural whatever, and you can taste the chemical too. Like now you're seeing so many more people come out with gut issues from the if it fits your macros. So that's where it's like just food quality matters so much, without getting on too much of a tangent about that. But
absolutely,
it just matters so much about what you're eating. Even if you have more food to eat, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be like immediately or completely changing the food quality of your plate. And also, it's still okay to have pasta. I still have pasta at least once a week. It's still okay to have like a burger. We make burgers every Sunday night. It's still okay to the lightly breaded chicken fillets from Costco that I turned you on to, and I've turned so many people on to. I was just talking to it about last night at the book lunch with Amanda. I was like,
so good.
Those things. She's like, I need people to know when they influence me. Like I went and got those like right away. And I was like, they're
So
so
good.
good. Like, I just can't explain why they're so good, but I'll just like raw dog a fillet. Like, they're just
I literally did that at your home. It was
yes,
wonderful. It was great.
they're amazing.
Throw
Like,
those in the air
it's
fryer.
the flavor. And like, so many people have been like, are they slimy? Are they fatty? I'm like, no, they're perfect. I can't
They're
explain it.
literally
There's nothing
perfect.
wrong with them.
Yeah. Well, people just get so hung up in like good food, bad food. And I'm like, I do not live from this policy of good food, bad food. I live from this policy of there is nutrient dense food and then there's less nutrient dense food. And like, it's okay to have those less nutrient dense items, or also like in moments of convenience, if you genuinely need that, like depending on your lifestyle, we do not all have the same 24 hours in a day. And if somebody
Yeah.
tells you that they do, or if a coach says that they do, no, like I cannot compare my life and my 24 hours to a mom of three. And I cannot
No.
compare my resources to someone else's resources and what they can get to fill those needs and to fill those macros. But there's such a way that we can educate of helping someone understand like the importance of that and easy substitutions and swaps, because also you don't know what your client doesn't know. That's also the hard part too,
Yeah.
is like you'll make assumptions about a client of like, well, why don't they just pick this up? Why don't they just understand it? Your client genuinely may not know what protein sources are. They genuinely may not know what certain food items are. They may think like it's one thing, but it's another. They may have been told from a different coach that it's one thing and you know that that's not factual. Now you need to educate them on the opposite. It's taking the patience of the reverse diet and looking at those food logs and figuring out like what are they filling those calories with. And then the reverse diet itself, like the length of that can really vary based on these outliers that can exist, how somebody is filling their macros, how their body's responding. That could delay potentially someone's reverse diet. And at the end of the day, we just want to get them up to maintenance because like there's so much power in that and there's so much enjoyment in life that can be lived in maintenance. But it can definitely be a little elongated by a client who is less adherent or less proficient maybe in their tracking skills or aware of the food that they're filling. And I mean, in an ideal world, like I would love for someone to reverse faster than not. Like I would love for someone to be reversing fairly quickly, but that's going to be dependent on so many different metrics. And I could see it taking, I've seen it take 4 to 6 weeks, and then I've seen it take 10 to 12 weeks. I've seen it take long for some people to get up into their reverse, simply usually on the longer end due to factors that are from choices that were not really the best made in their deficit. And now their body is kind of needing some time to catch up to it.
Yep. And I think it's also important to note you're gonna have clients who are like, I'm just not hungry. And when that happens, I like to explain to them, it's like, hey, you've had, especially if they've been dieting for a long time, like you've had years of just not eating enough. And so your body has just been trained that way. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, this isn't where you meet them in the middle and you're just like, oh yeah, like, it's okay. Like, and it's not really a place to be empathetic, to be honest with you. It's like, hey, your body is just not telling you it's hungry. You don't have hunger and fullness cues, and we have to train those hunger and fullness cues. So even if you aren't hungry, I need you to be eating a regular scheduled meal. Like, I need you to we need to get on a good plan because they just haven't trained their body. A lot of people, I hear so often, they're like, well, my client just like, they like get a coffee in the morning and then they just don't eat all day and then they'll just eat at night. I can't fathom that. When people are like, I just didn't eat today, I'm like, what do you mean? You
Yeah.
mean you didn't eat? Like you just weren't hungry? Like I'm
Or
hungry
you
all day.
or you look at like a client's food log and their breakfast is like literally a black coffee with like a protein bar, and you're like, that wasn't like a full whole breakfast I would have wanted you to have. Like maybe they're trying, but again, like
Yeah.
some of those clients may not understand that like, hey, I'd rather you have actually like some eggs with some toast in the morning and maybe like
Yeah.
some fruit on the side. Like I would love for you to have a little bit more density to your meal. And honestly, to someone's breakfast, like if someone added more density to their breakfast, their reverse diet would feel so much easier because they're just trying to go off of, oh, well, I'll increase my lunch and my dinner. I'm sorry, but there is only so far that you want to increase your lunch and your dinner before you are so full, truly, genuinely so full, just because of
Yeah.
the masses of food you're trying to eat in a singular setting. Whereas if you could spread that out throughout the day and just focus on that, clients would be in such a better place. Like they really would. And I always tell clients, hey, your hunger is adaptive. Your body, the human body does not get enough credit for how adaptive it is. Like the amount of days your body can survive off of food and, adapt to certain scenarios. I mean, if you were stranded on an island, your body is literally like designed to help you survive. But here we are, we're in America or wherever you're listening from, and we've got resources, we've got food in front of us. Your body is adaptive and has learned from past behaviors that this is normal, and I'm just going to regulate out to what I'm being given because I'm going to survive in the setting I'm in. It will also survive when you give it more food. It's just going to need, it's like a trust process with your body. It's trusting that you can give your body what it wants and it's going to give you what you want in return as well.
Yeah, and I always say like if you're not hungry, there's ways around that. Like if we just need to get calories in right now, especially if someone's super low, it's not a suggestion I give to everyone, but like orange juice. Put orange juice in a
Yep.
protein shake instead. Actually, don't even have protein shakes. Have like, well, if you're not hungry, actually, protein shakes are really helpful. I would rather have you have like whole foods, but like a smoothie. You
Yeah.
can sip on that thing all morning and you could make it super calorically dense. Like you could put peanut butter in it. You could put maybe not peanut butter and orange juice, but like peanut butter, chocolate milk, like all the things, and kind of training your body that way with like liquid calories. Even like if someone's always low on fats, I'm like, just drizzle coconut oil on your like rice and chicken and veggies, and you have fats right there. 1 tablespoon of coconut oil is 15 grams, or you can do olive oil, and it adds like a little bit of flavor to it. Fruit is a great option if you're only eating raspberries and blackberries. Like those are really, really low. They're great sources of fiber. Don't get me wrong; those are like my favorite fruits. But those and strawberries, like berries, just tend to be very much lower calorie fruit options. So instead, opting for mango, kiwi, apples, bananas. One banana is like 30 grams of carbs. And I don't say that to scare anyone away. I say that because it's a great source of carbs
I love a
for you to
banana.
fuel yourself. Yeah, like and so I think it's just a matter of swapping those things and having more calorically dense things instead
Yep.
of like your English muffin in the morning. Have a bagel.
Yep.
I Sorry, the way I say bagel,
It's
I can't fix
bagel.
it.
She says bagel.
See, this is where I get
Um,
hung up because it's not. Anyways, not important.
well, it's also the reality that like people for so long have shopped. It's funny. Like my mom's the perfect example of this. Love you, mom, if you're listening. But she will always be like, "Oh, aren't you so proud of me? Like I bought like the low fat thing or the low carb thing or the high
Mm,
protein, like the marketing that people put on food
yep.
labels." And I'm like, I would much rather you get the normal version. Like, one,
Tastes
there's
way
probably a
better.
tastes way better. If you look at actually the ingredients, like you don't have to actually understand an ingredient list to know if something's like good or not for you. Like, if it's a shorter list of ingredients, it's always going to be less processed. It's going to be quote unquote better for you in comparison to something that's like literally a grocery list worth of ingredients on there. But a lot of those things that are fat free or low carb, all this stuff, those are the things that have more additives and more sugars and more things in them that are actually less optimal. And when somebody is, that's a whole different tangent, but when somebody is needing to reverse diet and increase more, but they're continuously eating the marketing stuff that's like low calorie and only 100 calories, only 50 calories, you are never going to feel successful in reverse dieting up because you're always leaning on the things that have the sexy food labels when in reality, like just go eat the normal version of it. You don't need the keto version of crackers when you should be eating the regular crackers. Like go eat the regular crackers. The keto crackers taste like cardboard. I promise you that.
And you're destroying your gut. Like anytime I see on a food blog those low carb tortillas, I am like, throw those out right now. Like if you have a real tortilla, especially like here in Phoenix, like we have so like fresh tortillas that are in the tortilla section. And they're so much better. Like that low carb tortilla tastes like shit. And it also
Mhm.
has 15 grams of fiber in it, and you are going to be pooping your pants. Like that. And sometimes that's the only source of fiber someone has for the whole day. And I'm
Yeah.
like, or like I'm looking at a log and I'm like, wow, you had a lot more fiber this day. And then I'm like, oh, not the low carb tortilla.
Yeah.
Because it's just a lot of fiber for your body to digest. And that's the reason why it is low carb. For those of you who don't know, it's the sugar. So like basically low carb, if it's labeled as low carb, no carb, whatever, but it's like something like a tortilla or a piece of bread. Basically, this is not it's a marketing tactic. It is not approved by the FDA, but they take the fiber and the added sugars or sugar alcohols, they subtract it from the total carb amounts because technically fiber is not digested in the body, which is true. Like it's just roughage in the gut, which it's necessary for regular digestion. But that's how they do it. So it's not like a regulated thing. It's just a marketing tactic. You're still eating 38 grams of carbs if there's 38 grams of carbs in it. Like it's
Yeah.
still there.
The things that only market the net carbs, and they're like, oh, only five carbs. I'm like, no, there's net carbs, and then there's
it doesn't
normal
work that way.
real carbs that are in there. Like you're not suddenly avoiding the 40 grams of carbs all because
like no calories in raspberries if that was the case, because there's like so
it's crazy. It is wild. So I think that we could get on, again, reverse dieting creates its own tangent. And I think any coach listening is like, yep, it totally does. Like, and we could probably sit there on a client check-in who needs to go through a reverse and babble for hours and hours and hours. But at the end of the day, you just have to really lay out like the structure. You need to be looking at their food logs. You need to be making substitutions. And I also want to say, like, there's nothing wrong with those items for convenience. Like if somebody does need to swap to a lower carb tortilla because they're going into a fat loss phase and they're struggling with maybe some decisions, like similar to what Kelsey said, we don't love to always recommend drinking your calories, but if that's what you need to do in order to increase your caloric intake, then so be it. Like at the end of the day, we have to look at it as the barrier to entry depending on the client. Can we make the barrier to entry a little bit easier for this client while working and improving on their food choices by some foods of convenience, some labeled items of convenience? Sure. There's always going to be space for anything. I think there's always a but statement to any suggestion that you make. And there's no perfect way to do it. It's going to be very dependent on the client as well. But I do want to lead this a little bit more in depth into like who should reverse diet, because you had brought up kind of the more aggressive approach as far as those on GLP-1s or those who have been at chronic dieting phases. But who else do you think needs to go through a reverse diet, or who do you find usually needs to go through a reverse diet?
The people who are really inconsistent. So this is the biggest one. So something I really hate in the coaching industry actually is all the coaches who are like, you need to eat more. You need to eat more. The reason why you're not seeing results is that you're not eating enough. And I think that can really be taken greatly out of context. Like, yes, there are definitely people who have been trying diet after diet after diet after diet, and they don't have hunger cues, and they genuinely are actually having 1,500 or less calories a day, and they've just learned to survive off of that. But there's also the people who aren't eating enough on the weekdays, and then they kind of, like I was mentioning earlier, they go overboard on the weekends. And it doesn't even have to mean that you're not like that you're drinking. Maybe it's not even just alcohol. It's just that you go out to dinner and you get an appetizer, and then you also get your meal, and then maybe you go out for ice cream later. And don't get me wrong, I love eating out, and I actually do it often. Not often.
Same.
Maybe once a week.
I was gonna say, maybe once, twice a week, or like if you're
back a little bit,
if we're traveling and stuff too. Like there's enjoyment and indulgence to be had in life.
Yeah. And when you're eating enough throughout the week, you don't feel the need to go overboard. And I think that's where there's maybe a common misconception of like, hey, you need to eat more. But it's not that you need to eat more every day. It's that you actually just need to eat more the Monday through Thursday where you're restricting yourself, so that when you go out to dinner on Friday night, you don't go overboard and you're not just like, oh, it's my cheat meal. Like, a cheat meal doesn't mean, I also hate that term, but it doesn't mean that you're just going balls to the wall and like eating whatever you want. Like I remember there was a time when I was dieting like hardcore for this trip to Hawaii in 2015. Kaden was going on it. We'd only been dating for like 9 months. And I was like, I want to be lean. So I did a bodybuilding.com program. And
I already feel triggered.
Cold tilapia. And this was also, mind you, right after I tore my ACL. So this was like, I tore my ACL a week before we started officially dating. So like same timeline. I was 8 months post-op doing this crazy diet where I was eating like brownies made of baby food, tilapia, 6 almonds, cold tilapia, mind you, at my summer job at a golf course. Like it was just so restrictive. I'm like, how did my parents, was it mom and dad, if you're listening, why'd you let me do that? You saw me making baby food brownies. I was home for the summer, just like doing so much cardio. Anyway, I like hardcore dieted, and I got like to a point where I was pretty like leanest I've ever been. And then I blew up on vacation. But I remember this like specific moment. I drove down to Portland to watch one of Caden's baseball games, and we went to Red Robin after. Red Robin used to be my shit. I just don't like chain restaurants anymore, but bottomless fries. I was like, keep them coming. I ate so many fries, ridiculous amounts of fries. I took a to-go box with me and ate them on the way back on the drive, the 3-hour drive I had to make. And so that's a real thing. Like when you feel super restricted during the day, like during the normal days of the week, you tend to go all out and you don't even realize it because it's just mindless. And you're like, oh, there's not that many calories in this. Like my burger has a vegetable on it. And so I think those are the people, like Kelsey in 2015 really desperately needed a reverse diet and she never gave it to herself. And so like those are the people, because when you eat enough, when you eat at maintenance every day of the week, you feel satisfied. So when you do go out to eat, the crazy thing is you have this mindset. I don't know, it doesn't just happen, but over time it happens where you actually crave healthier options. Like I crave vegetables when I'm on vacation. I'm like, I just want like a grilled fish and vegetables and like, you know, some rice or something. Like you don't crave as much of the greasy, like comfort foods because your body is satisfied. And like, it's such a big difference. So those are the people who really desperately need a reverse diet.
Yeah, absolutely. We've all been there. I remember the first time that somebody even suggested a reverse diet to me. I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, what do you mean I need to eat more? Like,
Nothing.
but same cycle, you don't realize it until you're out of it. And I think back to like our trip to Mexico and I'm like, you know, we were so excited for like our juices and our smoothies every day. Like screw anything else. I mean, don't get me wrong, we loved our ice cream at night too, but we were like, and the ceviche, but like when you think about that, like high protein and some tortilla chips to eat it with, like I was looking forward to that more than I wanted like a greasy beef taco, you know, like it wasn't as appealing. But don't get me wrong, there's times to have the tacos and there's times to have all of this stuff. So the reverse diet itself helps in so many ways. Sticking at maintenance helps in so many ways with someone's relationship with food. And a lot of times, like, again, it could be completely intentional that someone's in a deficit and they need to reverse, or it could be completely unintentional because they've just for so long only known one way of eating or only understood one way of eating. And a lot of times for the people who are unintentional, when you do a baseline track for a client and they're like under eating to a degree, their weekends are usually not tracked accurately. Like a lot of times, if you look at it over a period of time, they likely have had moments of overeating actually, because you didn't just gain 50 pounds by undereating. Like you didn't just gain that over time. But if someone's like, oh, like I've always eaten this way, they likely haven't. Maybe it's an accumulation of the vacations and the work trips and all this stuff that have added up that when, yes, they're home during the week, their calories are 1,300 calories or less, you know, but then during the weekends or during travels, it's a whole different picture. And so there's a lot of information gathering you need to do, and you have to make the right decision for the client. But at the end of the day, you will never regret putting someone through a reverse diet, sitting at maintenance for a little bit before getting an even better result than you could if you're trying to just push the needle forward at a current deficit that they're already in.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to point out too of the importance of maintenance in just building muscle. Like I always like to use the joke, and I like to have it be lighthearted only because like it's a sensitive topic when you're talking about weight loss. But when somebody, and I'm not talking about the people who have like 100 pounds to lose or even 50 pounds to lose. This is more pertaining to people who maybe have 15, 20 pounds to lose. They could afford to take some time at maintenance to gain some muscle. I always like to like kind of joke, but it's also a good visual. I'm like, hey, if you go back into a deficit after you were just in one 4 to 6 months ago and you've been in one pretty much off and on for years, you're just going to look like Gumby if we go to lose weight. And like that's the immediate reaction. They kind of laugh and I'm like, but really, like think about what Gumby looks like. Gumby is just a flat little thing. Like he's flat. He has and that's what people want when they lose weight. They want to be toned. They want to have the chiseled shoulders. They want to look like they work out. Even if you're lifting in the absence of enough fuel, you aren't gaining or even maintaining muscle mass. And so if you go to lose weight when you're already in a deficit, first of all, you can't cut a cut. You're already in a cut. We can keep pulling calories, but for what expense of you to just be miserable? Whereas if we took some time to gain muscle, you're going to be so much more metabolically sound that You actually don't have to cut and be as miserable. Like, you don't have to cut as low.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a huge point too. Um, but also as a coach, when you go to give a client a plan in a reverse diet, be so detailed. Like, be so every part. Like in your plan delivery, just give the client every answer that they need. I would even argue pulling up like some research studies, like especially for the client, maybe, and you don't have to do this for every client, by the way, but like the clients that are very nervous, they're very apprehensive to eating more. Um, it's so important to make sure they feel super, super secure in the fact that they're going to be eating more food, because it is a very like sensitive topic for some people. Some people are genuinely so scared. Like, those people are primarily the women I was talking about in their 40s and 50s who have done everything. They've done Atkins, they've done South Beach, they did keto, they've done Optavia, they've done all of it. And now they're looking to go to GLP-1, or they're on a GLP-1. Like, I think it's just so important. They have years and years and years of dieting, and they've been what's the word I'm trying to think of? They've been brainwashed into thinking that less food is more. And so I think it's just really important to make sure they feel super secure when you're going to tell them, like, hey, you're going to eat more food.
Yeah. And I think just really helping them zoom out on the real vision. And at the end of the day, likely that dream physique that they have is going to take multiple phases of cutting, multiple phases of building, multiple phases to get there. Like, you don't just get there in one singular cut. Like, that's a really cute thought to think that you're going to become the chiseled, bodybuilder in like one deficit after not potentially lifting and after not potentially, eating a sufficient amount of food or having a regulated diet. It's a lot. And I think that's why we need to talk about the importance of the non-scale victories with these clients and emphasize, like, I'll stop clients. I've had clients in literally reverse diets set one of their goals. In our check-in, we'll be like, hey, set 1 to 2 intentions or goals for the next week. And some of them will still set scale intentions. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is not the focus. And nor do we have control over this. Like, we do to a degree, as far as, again, inflammation and choices, like good nutrient dense choices that you're making for your body. But at the end of the day, like, we cannot put the pressure on our body in a reverse to do anything scale related. And, your healthiest body might be 5 pounds higher than when you ended your deficit. And that's okay, because when you think about it, your stomach is holding more contents when you are in a reverse diet. You're holding more food, you're holding more water, you have a lot more going on, and that's okay. And not all weight gain is fat gain, just like how not all weight loss is fat loss. There has to be this emphasis of like, hey, looking at photos, seeing how you're feeling, biofeedback. And if you lost 20 pounds in a dieting phase and only gained 5 back in a reverse, you're still trending downwards. And then guess what? Now you get to maybe maintain those 5 pounds. Maybe you gain a little bit of muscle mass. You're maybe 7, 8 pounds up. Now you can go into another deficit. Maybe you drop another few pounds. But again, at the end of the day, you have to just look at your physique and your body composition and not be so married to this scale number or set an intention around it, because the point of a reverse diet is not to set any intention around the scale. It's to really set an intention for your body and what your body deserves and what your body needs to literally function in any phase that, or really the main phase it should be in when you're not in a cut. Like, if you're not in a cut or in a build, you need to understand maintenance and be at maintenance. And to be a really good intuitive eater, you need to be tracking at maintenance for a pretty long period of time, in my opinion. You can't just like reverse diet up and be like, okay, cool, like I made it up here, now I'm going to drop off. You're likely going to go back to your old eating patterns. You're likely going to go back to like all the old ways that you did things because you didn't emphasize enough of the maintenance like you did the cutting phase.
Yeah, maintenance is just, I could talk about maintenance all day. But I think it's too, because in maintenance, you still can gain muscle. Your body still can absolutely change. I mean, I've been at maintenance for like 2 years now. And it's amazing. Like, I ended up actually like losing weight at maintenance because I was in like a surplus, and it was great. You just lose a little bit of water retention. But I think too, when you spend enough time at maintenance, you start to appreciate your body for what it can do instead of what it looks like. And then you slowly start to feel a little bit more neutral towards it. And so I think for your clients who just constantly feel the need to cut, we've all had the clients. And if you're listening to this and you feel the need to constantly need to cut, because I even know some coaches out there who will put themselves into multiple cuts a year, you're doing a disservice to your body. You're just running it into the ground. You're placing so much stress on it by cutting like multiple times a year. I truly firmly believe that you should only be cutting once a year. And if it is twice, it's like starting a cut at the end of the year after you finished one at the beginning of the year. Like, that's where I'm at with that, because so many things can happen at maintenance. And when you start to appreciate your body for what it can do, maybe you start to realize like, wow, I can actually have other goals that I'm more passionate about. I can go do a Spartan race or a HYROX. Like, I know so many people are doing HYROX now, or I can go run a race, and it doesn't even have to necessarily be like something you're competing in, but maybe it's just like, you know what? I want to start like deadlifting more. I want to start Olympic lifting. Like, you just start to realize how many cool things there are to do, and that the things you have the actual like energy to do now because you are fueling your body with what it needs.
Absolutely. And even just the like lack of food noise you feel, like it's not just the performance stuff you're going to reap the benefit of, it's being able to go out to eat and not be like, oh, well, I need to get this because I'm in a deficit, or I need to get this because I'm in a deficit. Like the freedom you genuinely, and almost, I would say like the trust and the confidence you ultimately build in your decision making around food is something that is so powerful in a maintenance phase in comparison to a deficit. Like if you don't feel confident with your choices of food and how that goes, then like I highly recommend that you stay in maintenance a lot longer. Like if you can't go into the deficit, because deficits are cutthroat. Like I tell my clients, hey, like I want to be in and out of this thing. But
They're
if
not
you can't
fun.
do that, like they're not fun. If you cannot adhere to it consistently, it's not worth our time. You're just going to end up wasting more time. And we can come back to the cut. The cut will always be here, but the maintenance is like genuinely where the power of it all is, and what really ultimately determines, I would say, someone's success rate in a cut, based on their adherence as well. And you had talked about, staying at maintenance. And I know this is a common question that we get with our cohort and our school group as well, is like, well, how long should someone stay in maintenance before they go back into a deficit? And I know we're kind of getting, the topic of this is reverse dieting, but I think it's an important question to answer for coaches. So what would your answer be, Kelsey, of like, how long should someone keep their client in maintenance?
Ideally a year. Ideally at least a year. To get your body in a good spot. I know 6 months it's rushing it. It it's like, it's almost like, would you rather get, it's like quality over quantity, right? If you keep your client at maintenance, and given it's also really hard to sell someone on maintenance when they're paying you as a coach, right? But I think it's also so important to remember like, someone's not just paying you to lose weight. That's what they think it is, but that's only the product of it. Like, there's so many other things along the journey that they're going to learn, so many other tidbits, that if you have a coach for a year at maintenance, I can guarantee you, you will have lifetime success, and you won't need to hire another coach, because you're going to understand how much you love maintenance, how important it is, and how much better you feel at maintenance. So obviously there's a lot of context to that would need to be answered, and it's one of those things where it's like, it does depend. 6 months it's short, but if they're short, like 8 to 12 week cuts, then sure. I've had clients go through 6 month cuts where we do diet breaks, and they're still seeing progress throughout the 6 months, and maybe it was just a slower start, so we had to extend it a little more. um but those are the people where I'm like, you need to be at maintenance for at least the time you were in a deficit or longer. Because just jumping from like diet to diet and only being in maintenance for like 4 weeks or 8 weeks, like when people are like, oh, I was at maintenance for some time, and I'm like, oh, how long? They're like 2 months. I'm like, that didn't do anything for you. Like, you were barely just like dipping your toe in the water. And I also think the most common misconception with maintenance is like, you're going to gain weight. Maintenance is maintenance. Maintenance. You are maintaining.
Maintenance.
Maintenance. Like every
Think,
1 to 3 pounds.
about like when if you were renting an apartment, right? And the maintenance worker comes to your apartment. Why are they coming there? To maintain, to help
Maintain a good
maintain
apartment.
the state of the apartment and your safety in that
Yep.
apartment as well.
Yep. And I think that's such an important like thing to like really nail down for your clients that are nervous about a reverse diet and being at maintenance, is like, hey, you saw good results in this cut, right? Like, let's just say you took them through a cut. It's like, cool. Like, this maintenance period is going to just like maintain those things. Whereas the whole rest of the time you've ever done a deficit, you just went balls out and did whatever you wanted right after. This is the magic.
We're going to keep it right here. This is the one.
I like am to the point where I'm just like, there's no option. Like, if you come and coach with me, you're going to be at maintenance majority of the time. Like, when I'm giving my roadmap to clients, I'm like, here, look at all this purple on the roadmap. Most of the year is maintenance. Sorry about it.
and if you're a coach who is constantly, sorry if you hear Enzo barking, I had kind of shut the door because him and Charlie were wrestling and tussling, but now of course he wants to come out. So I may have to open that door. But I think a lot of the times, like for coaches who are never successful in getting a client a result, like they're like, oh, I like get the client the result, but then they lose it. Or like, I don't have testimonials to prove, I don't have transformation photos. Are you implementing reverse dieting and maintenance into protocols? Because it's not just fat loss. And I think so many coaches are quick to want to just like put their clients into these fat loss phases to please their clients. And then ultimately, I mean, like a client's success is our success as coaches. So they want to have more to speak for. But if you have no transformations to speak for, it may very well be due to the fact that like you aren't emphasizing maintenance enough. And that's why the results aren't being kept. And maybe you aren't having the transformations you want or the success rate in a deficit that you want to. And that comes from being an authority figure as a coach as well, and like really leading the way. You can't just have a client come in and walk all over you and be like, well, I want a fat loss phase, so I'm going into a fat loss phase. It's like, that's a really cute thought, and like, sure, go put yourself into one, but like, go see how successful that is. It's not going to be as successful. They hired you for a reason. And if you're not talking about this in your content, if you're not talking about the power of maintenance, it's going to be even harder to convince someone to ultimately come on and to work with you through it. Like when you can emphasize things that aren't just related to fat loss, it goes such a long way.
Mic drop. Life is more than a cut. I'm going to get that on a shirt.
And the cut will always be there. Like, I can't say it enough. It's like time is moving anyways. Wouldn't you so much rather just like sit at maintenance for 6 to 12 months and then go into a deficit versus trying to battle a cut for 6 months and being unsuccessful and then just frustrated, and then your relationship with food is shit, and then you go to intuitive eating and you're still not eating enough, and it's just like, I can see the storyline. I can literally see I've seen this movie before. I've seen it play. I've seen it play its path. Like, I'm not saying this because I'm an asshole. I'm saying it because I've been there, like genuinely. Yeah. I hope that Kelsey and I always say to our cohort, we're like, we what was it? We walked so you could run or something.
So you can run.
I'm like, literally, that's what it is as a coach with clients. Like, we are genuinely not trying to be the assholes. We're just trying to be like the true guides in this process, because it was something we needed once upon a time. And it took us longer to see results because of our own stubbornness and our own ego. But now we've learned, and now we teach people to do the opposite and to help them through that and to see results faster, even though in their eyes, maybe it doesn't feel faster because they're more focused on the short term, not the long term. But I think when you can really emphasize the long term with someone, it goes such a long way.
Yep. Long term is key. The last thing I'll say is your family is going to thank you if you're not constantly chasing a cut, because one, you're grumpy all the time, and two, that affects like their food. Like, I know Caden, like, he loves the fact that I have not been in a cut. He, like, hated it when I go into a cut. He's like, wait, so does that mean I don't get to eat as much? I'm like, or it means you get to eat more because I made this whole package and I can only have a certain amount. But you're also just, like, I don't think people realize how much happier they would be in maintenance. Like, I just, you're hangry all the time. So that's, like, a total byproduct of, like, reverse dieting and eating more, is you're just happier. You have more energy.
Yeah. So. I do recommend too, if someone does reverse diet up to maintenance, we already said this, but like, emphasize with your clients that they should continue to track. Like, it's okay too to, I think, taper out of tracking for a period of time. If someone is like successful enough, I still think it's important to track a few days here and there just to like make sure. Like, maybe you went and did a grocery haul and you're making your first day of the week of food that you're prepping or something. Like, maybe track the first day and just like get a gauge of, you know, what is this coming out to if you don't feel 100%, or if you find yourself like slacking a little bit, go ahead and like track it roughly for yourself just to know. And then that way you don't have to track the rest of the week if you're eating the same foods. I get it if someone's a creature of habit, but there's also data that needs to be had of like, okay, but is that actually enough? Are you still actually in maintenance?
Yep.
we've said all the words. We've said all the
things. Yeah, I'm sure. Well, there's definitely more that we could say, but then we'd be on our soapbox.
For sure.
As if we haven't already been.
No, people listen to us for our soapbox.
It's true.
We just give the honest thoughts that we all have, but yeah, if you guys don't know much about reverse dieting, if you want to go through a reverse diet, if you're like, please help, send Kelsey and I a DM. Everything will always be in the show description below. Yep. Anything else we need to share, Kels?
I don't think so.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time.
See you on the next one.
Bye.